Welcome to our small memory video of a Tuscan bikepacking adventure. We came for distance, for old routes and long days in the saddle, for pizza and for the mild climate. What we got at first was rain and clay that refused to let go. But then, beautiful landscapes, sea swims, ancient villages, golden light, rewarding views and an unforgettable time together. Consider yourself gently warned and warmly invited. It was a bliss to start our journey towards the Tuscany with a train ride through the Alps and with views to the Dolomites. In the Tuscany we cycled for 8 days with the goal of maximizing highlights. After having arrived late in the evening before, it was time to get ready to leave Bologna. The destination of our first stage was Florence. But before facing our own struggles, it was time to have breakfast. Statues were kindly guiding us the way out of this beautiful city. Soon we found ourselves following the way of the gods. The Via Degli Dei is a 130-kilometer route from Bologna to Florence. The Romans who built the trading route 2,200 years ago probably didn't think of people on fully loaded two-wheeled vehicles to follow the trail for fun. Suitable for hikers and mountain bikes, the suitability for bikepackers on gravel bikes was later often re-evaluated. After the variety of paths, it was nearly a relief to have tarmac again. The next off-road path wouldn't wait too long, but ones like these are absolutely enjoyable. However, stretches like these are a bit less enjoyable due to their combination of roughness and steepness, which is barely capturable by camera. Tarmac often comes with a price of sharing the road with cars. These were the last off-road experiences of the day. The last kilometers of the day were full of blissful views and empty roads. Inconceivable at this point, but heavy rainfall of over 30 liters was announced for the next day. Thus we decided to stay in a bungalow instead of our tents for the night. This allowed already doing some laundry, extensive cooking and sleeping with the comfort of a bed. Contrary to the forecast, it didn't appear to have rained already throughout the night. Thus, the full load would be coming down on us throughout the day, with no sparing. Just when we were about to leave, the rain onset. Hiking wasn't our plan, but happened anyways. The major problem of the rain was actually not the water from above, but its impact on the ground beneath. Slippery stones and muddy pitches were a forecast of what we were still about to experience. The view down on Florence was beautiful, and at first we were for some time welcomed with the absence of rain and even some rays of sun. But also tunnels to get lost in and good but improvable bike infrastructure. The visit inside the cathedral is probably worth it, but due to the time lost by plenty hike and bike sections, we couldn't afford lining up in such a queue, thus inspection from the outside had to suffice. The next stage towards the sea would make us cross Siena, San Gimignano and Volterra. After fueling, it was time to find a place to spend the night. Unbelievable but true. These last few kilometers were the worst of the day. We got the first unpleasant acquaintance with the soil that had turned into clay due to the extended rain. After having faced sand, mud, deep grass, ice and snow, I am confident that the end boss is clay stuck everywhere on your bike. After the first damage control, the affordable tent avoiding shelter wasn't far. There we could finish our first but unfortunately not last hour-long cleaning session, with the exceptional luxury of a hose. Nonetheless, we started the next day with full of optimism and a very long climb. This old monastery offered itself as a worthy break to stretch the legs halfway. Once having reached the first plateau, it was a suitable moment to stretch legs also in other directions. Then, the paved road decided to stop and we were back to off-road for several kilometers. No signs of ongoing construction, but more of unfinished businesses. Luckily, a major part of the descent was paved and due to the absence of cars could be fully enjoyed. The entire remaining descent? Well, not entirely. An indomitable section held out against the invaders, And life was not easy for the German cyclists. The legionnaires as cyclists turned into the rebels eventually, as turning around would have meant a 15-kilometer detour instead of carefully maneuvering this landslide. After stocking up for the next day and setting up our tents, it was time for our first pizza at the campsite's restaurant. Waking up close to Arezzo, we first followed the same path for more than 10 kilometers. This path was a great example of one that gradually got worse and worse. To this day, I'm not sure how intentionally it targeted us specifically, but receiving a cup stating "foreigners everywhere" was the ultimate proof that cups can be passive-aggressive. And to be fair, we also felt a little alien in this cafe. Perched on a hill, Gimignano was a charming little village to explore. A frequent ritual followed. Not modeling, but first applying some cream against the sun and then cream against friction on the buttocks.
Why don't you ride a bike anymore? Why don't you ride a bike? Love, la la la. Why don't you ride a bike?
The idle was deceptive. This beautiful segment led us once again through difficult terrain with clayey soil.
Why don't you go for a walk?
Sometimes pushing,
Why don't you look at the cars?
sometimes
Why
carrying,
don't you smile? And
but all the time frustrating about the situation. Once again on safe ground, the next cleaning session started, scraping as much clay as possible from the drivetrain and wheels. Once back rolling, we remained very paranoid about the ground's condition. Trust issues were already formed. In the next village, Garmin warned me of a high-traffic road. And indeed, it was a close call as I had to yield to someone from the right. One of the many great things about cycling in Italy is the water fountains everywhere. After sleeping another night in a hotel for our comfort-loving asses, literally, and loading up at a breakfast buffet, we crossed the more hilly and stereotypical landscape I remembered from my childhood vacation here. However, it was more sunny in my memory. And then, the first city from that time, but it was my first time climbing up to Siena. Then the first time swimming through people in Siena. And the first time solo walking through Siena's cathedral. After picking up the dudes, we escaped again through the masses of other tourists. The 800-year-old town Monteriggioni seemed to be a highlight for all kind of cyclists and other tourists, maybe partly due to its mentioning in Dante's Divine Comedy. Retrospectively, this turn could have been avoided. After inspecting the stream crossing, we decided to turn around, causing us once again to cross Monteriggioni. After a long road ascent, we reached another touristic location, San Gimignano. This 2000-year-old town is still famous for its tower houses, built during the rivalry between Pope supporting Guelphs and Holy Roman Emperor supporting Ghibellines, building tower houses higher than the previous ones of their rivals. Of the 72 towers at its culmination, there are now only 14 towers remaining. Descending from there felt wonderful. Mostly traffic-free, through amazing scenery and rewarding golden landscapes. The ascent in the direction of Volterra had another famous shortcut planned in. Apparently unused for a long time, but at least also fairly car-free. And surprising another being minding their business here, which was the first time for me to see a badger alive and not as victim of car traffic. Making the best of our camping cookers, we ended the day with cooking risotto and started the day with boiling water. Afterwards, it was time to finish the ascent to Volterra. After Volterra, we had a descent competing among my all-time favorites, until we reached the off-road section that should have been a shortcut through the landscape. It would have been incredible scenic if it hadn't turned into clay. But it had, so by now at the latest, the take-home message was clear. Gravel or mud can seem fun for a long while, but some patches might be composed of completely different soil. Thus, after riding carelessly, the road might suddenly turn into something you will regret. Equally bad as the third tedious bike clean, we had to turn around, back up the hill and choose the road. Afterwards, Italian recovery protocol, Aperol and pizza. Sometimes trails are just muddy. The unpredictability of those changing into dusty paths again was another consistent theme. Blissful moments just before a snake longer than a meter and I were surprised of each other in the constant change of shadow and sun. I thought the snake was a bow, not sure what the snake thought before quickly disappearing with a hiss. After the long-awaited jump into the sea, We continued along the sea towards Livorno and then via Pisa and Lucca to Prato. We were beautifully covered by this pine tree forest towards a camping spot. There we could do laundry and cook a soy bolognese, a veggie interpretation of a very traditional dish. After breakfast at the sea, another dip into it, maybe regretting some vacation choices, packing up, returning the clothes horse, and taking a picture for the wall at home, it was time to hit the road again. The more adventurous alternative to the main road was fantastic, and the extra effort was worth it for sure. It was mostly car-free with 2 unexpected exceptions. On the contrary, Livorno wasn't something a cyclist would recommend yet. Despite some bike lanes, cycling through it was annoying due to unexpected, long detours, frequent dangerous proximity to cars, various construction sites and the low chance of successfully finding affordable meals as it was full of tourist hotspots trying to lure us inside.
Strutting down the streets, undefined, breaking walls, leaving echoes behind. Colors burst and the neon signs, they can't capture what I did.
But after some other obstacles, we managed to enter the bike highway towards a contrary to the prior contrary, Pisa.
Electric and true. Lift the night with a rebel's cheer. This is my world, it's crystal clear.
Pisa came as a surprise to us, as it should be more famous for its nice vibes and beautiful streets, and not just mainly for its tower. Hopefully the only place in the world where people collectively look like pantomimes pushing against an invisible object. But the urge was irresistible. Also other travelers approached us to take pictures as motivation for their common friend back home. Ending the day with finding a creative tool replacement while setting up our tents with a view. Our last day started with this still wonderful view before we continued a beautiful gravel road towards Lucca. It was fun to cycle on the city walls. After following a next generation cyclist into the center, it was time to have breakfast at the city's main square before continuing through 2000 years of history. It felt like a long time since the last real off-road adventure, as everything got to be so easy once it was dry. This 600-year-old oak left a lasting impression. Within this wonderful section, the here rightfully hesitating friend was moments later crashing into nature, but without harm, due to entangled roots. If anyone has noticed so far, the back of our jerseys stating "Reunited in the Dolomites 2025" might be rightfully confused. The Dolomites were our originally intended destination, but we realized quite late that there will still be too much snow in the beginning of May and campsites will also not be open yet. Thus we saw the Dolomites only from within the train and have instead spontaneously checked the final destination of our already booked train, which was Bologna. Pisa had started the black and white stripe building trend and was copied by multiple cities including Pistoia, Siena and virtually all Tuscan cities we have passed. Some upcoming cyclist enthusiasts daring crossing our path before reaching Prato main station. I'm now going to use these self-explaining outro clips for a personal summary. I have had rainy bikepacking trips before, but never like this. In the first 3 days of this trip, more water came down on me than in the entire month in the UK and Ireland in the previous year. That was something I had really not anticipated in the Tuscany. Day 2 especially was something I had never experienced on a bike at all. Even if we had skipped that day and went boringly and dangerously via the main road, these clay cleaning moments would have still caught up on us. Also, I never had a longer bikepacking trip with friends before. Thus, it was new for me to make compromises and stop more frequently for toilet breaks or clothing changes, etc. But it also meant better conversations, shared frustration, shared laughter, and the kind of bonding that only happens when going through these kinds of experiences together. So, all in all, rain, clay, detours, wildlife encounters, questionable cooking decisions and more, I wouldn't trade it. It was my friend's first bikepacking trip and somehow they are still up for the next one. Thanks, boys. Also thanks to everyone who watched our little adventure until here.